Oh, you have headphones in?
No, just
Okay.
on live, I'm saying.
All right. Ready?
You're good.
Do you want to do a sound check? You can hear it? Awesome. I'm not like crackling the sound too much. All right, perfect. All right. One thing, I don't have to do anything special to record, right? Just going to say that.
You're live now.
All right. Forgive me, everybody. I'm not necessarily the best with Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook until last year, so this is kind of a new thing to get used to. So for anybody who saw the post earlier in the week, the purpose of this event is to hear from the public, and then after we have an opportunity for public comments, we'll get into the warrant for the October 4th town meeting. We want to just kind of do similar to what we've done in the spring, where we go through kind of each of the articles, kind of give people an overview of where you can find information about them, kind of a brief explanation of approximately what they mean. So we have a few people here. Does anybody want to give any comments before we start? There'll be an opportunity at the end as well. All right. Looks like everybody's satisfied for now. All right. So before I get into it, I'd just like to make people aware that in my so this event is not sponsored by the town. It is not sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. Any resident of the town can reserve this bandstand for community events, and that's what I've done as a private individual. And so when I speak, just know that I'm speaking as individual Robert King, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the Oxford Board of Selectmen. And I segue there. Another thing I've done in my private capacity is I've actually written up a guide to Town Meeting Warrant and Town Guide. Just kind of, it's a little handout with a lot of links to where things you can find things on the town website. I wanted to do it last year, but I was kind of waiting for the town website to be finished, and it's been a while now, and I kind of figured, well, it's better to go with what I've got now, and then whenever we finish reconstructing the town website, I'll edit it as necessary. So anybody who's interested in that, you can feel free to contact me by email at robert.julius.king@gmail.com, and I'll provide the spelling in the comments. So basically, it's just kind of a list of where you can find the town budget, where you can watch at the meetings, where you can find the town charter, the zoning bylaws, general bylaws, all those sorts of things. You probably can't see this is entirely too far away, but I'll post a link there, maybe in the comments later. So, moving on to the town meeting. So, if you weren't already aware, the town meeting is October 4th at 7 p.m. It's going to be at the high school. Last time we was at the middle school. This time we're going to be at the high school in the auditorium. I've been told that they're not going to be able to do childcare this time just because of staffing issues, so unfortunately that won't be available for people. If you haven't already seen the Town Meeting Warrant, the Town Meeting Warrant is available on the town's website at www.oxfordma.us, and then you just select the link for government and town clerk, and then on the left you'll see a pane for town meeting information. And there you'll see for the October 4th special town meeting warrant. So we only have 7 articles. Some people were not happy with the Springtown meeting because it was very long. There's only 7 articles as opposed to, I think it was maybe 21 for the Springtown meeting. So hopefully it'll be a little bit shorter. Watch out, you'll walk through the video. Just be aware. If I'm not speaking loud enough, you're welcome to sit more close if you'd like. Yeah, If I'm not speaking loud enough, you can sit closer if you'd like. We don't, unfortunately, I don't have a PA system. I should have played ahead a little better. So if I'm a little loud online, people forgive me. I'll try and adjust the game in real time. I'll try to speak up for the people that are here. So the town meeting warrant, as I was saying, is fairly short for this town meeting. The first couple articles are what I like to refer to as housekeeping articles. They're just kind of standard things that we have to take care of for each of the town meetings. So Article 1 is to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds and appropriate a sum of money to pay unpaid bills of a prior fiscal year or acts thereupon. Pretty much you see this in every town meeting. It's just if there happens to be monetary items that money wasn't appropriated for, the town meeting can then vote to pay those unpaid bills. So the second article is to see if the town will vote to raise by taxation or transfer available funds and appropriate a sum of money to the capital stabilization fund or act thereupon. So it's very normal in the fall town meeting for the town to take what extra monies that are left over from free cash. You may have seen at the Board of Selectmen recently that the town's free cash has been certified. So there's an already known amount of money the town has. It's not appropriate. That's left over. Free cash is just money left over from the prior fiscal year that we haven't appropriated. So that's what we'll be voting to decide if we want to put some of that into the capital stabilization fund. Article 3 is regarding the recent opioid settlement. So the town is a party to those settlements, and so there's extra money that's available for like drug mitigation programs or other effects of the opioid crisis. So this will be an opportunity for the town meeting to vote to authorize the town government to appropriate that money as required by the settlement. So I'll just read the text. To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds and appropriate a sum of money to be expended in accordance with the Massachusetts State Subdivision for State Opioid Settlement Funds to be used for all of the purposes allowed by law, including those outlined in applicable opioid litigation settlement documents, the document prepared by the Substance Addiction Bureau of the Commonwealth Office of Health and Human Services, and consistent with any state guidelines or regulations further clarifying allowable uses of opioid litigation settlement funds to supplement and strengthen resources available to communities and families for substance use disorder prevention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery, or act thereupon. So that's the end of, like I said earlier, the housekeeping articles. Then we get into kind of the articles that I expect will probably be of more interest to people. So Article 4 is almost verbatim a similar article we had in the spring regarding the town's acceptance of civil service for the police department. And so the article says, to see if the town will vote to rescind its acceptance of Chapter 8 of the Acts of 1965, an act placing the office of the Chief of Police and positions of the regular or permanent members of the police force of the town of Oxford under the civil service law. Such rescission does not affect rights already in existence, but only apply to the civil service rights of successor employees or act thereupon, sponsored by the town manager and the police chief. So this was, some backstory that residents are probably already aware of. As I said earlier, we voted on this in the spring, almost exactly the same article. It did not pass in the spring. The prior annual town meeting, we had this very similar article to petition the legislature to have the town meeting or the town removed from civil service. That no action has been taken on that first vote by the town meeting to petition the legislature at the legislatures. That's just kind of out there. So the town is currently still in civil service for the police. This particular article, I'm trying to think what else we have to say about this. It was covered a lot at the Springtown meeting, and that video is posted on the town's website. You can access it if you go to on the town's website, oxfordma.us, and then under government, select cable access, and then on the left pane, there's a link to see the town's cable access website. And the government video on demand link will take you to the previous town meeting where you can see the discussion that occurred regarding this article. Again, this article is to remove the town's police force from civil service. So moving on to Article 5. Article 5 is regarding a 2.5 debt exclusion. For people who aren't familiar, under Proposition 2.5 under state law, there's a debt, an override and a debt exclusion. An override is a permanent increase in taxes that is initiated to pay for some specific item. And then that's kind of a permanently increase to the levy, which is a permanent increase to residential property taxes. The debt exclusion is temporary. It's for the duration of a loan. Similar to if you take out a car loan or a mortgage that goes on for some set period of time, the town's levy, which is the collection of all the property taxes, is increased by that amount until the loan is paid off. So what this article, I'm going to read the text of the article and then I'll kind of talk about it a bit. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of money to pay the cost of engineering, design, constructing, and repairing foundations, siding, and roofs of the A.M. Chafee and Clara Barton Elementary Schools, and the partial roof replacement of the Oxford High School, including the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, and to meet this appropriation, authorize the treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to borrow such amount pursuant to the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, or any other enabling legislation to issue bonds or notes of the town. Therefore, provided, however, that any such borrowing shall be contingent upon passing of a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion ballot question pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C, subsection K. And so, if there hasn't been a lot of information put out about this so far, what has been discussed is if you saw the most recent school committee meeting, they had a brief discussion of this. They said that the expected cost of the project was about $10 million. So this project is to include the damaged siding at the Chafee and Barton schools. If you happen to drive by or you have kids you drop off there, you'll see that the siding is kind of corroded, it's crumbling. There's some concern about maybe there's some damage behind the siding. There's also some cracking of the school foundations. Previous town meetings, we've appropriated money, and that money's been used to kind of study the extent of the damage to the foundations. And so this will be, part of this will also be to actually repair those foundations. And also there's some leaking of the school roofs, especially at Chafee, but also at Clara Barton. And then there's also some, this article also applies to some of the high school roof. They want to address some of the leaking. Obviously, if you have a leaking roof, that the water does damage, this article is to help pay for all that. So the town's kind of wrapping all of those items into one 2.5 debt exclusion to kind of pay for all at once. Now, the sticker price is expected to be up to $10 million. However, the school committee did say they expect that the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, will grant the town between hopefully 70 to 80% of this. There was an issue with kind of the legislation regarding that last year, so the town had applied for some of this work last year. We didn't get the grant. They're applying this year. It seems they think there's a pretty good chance that the town will get the grant. So this town meeting article is to vote, do we want to have this go to a ballot question? Because with any 2.5 override or debt exclusion, you have to have it go to town meeting first. And then after if the town meeting approves it, then it'll go to a ballot question. At the school committee, they had kind of suggested, I don't know if this is how it would work out, but they had kind of suggested that there might be a ballot question for this in January. So again, it's expected to be probably a $10 million total ask, but then we're hoping that the state will come through with a grant for 70 to 80%. So that would put it maybe at between $2 and $3 million if we get the grant. But the exclusion would be up to the full amount. So there will be additional information about this at the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee has noticed a meeting to discuss this topic on Wednesday of this coming week. So you should look for that. I believe the email already went out for the meeting notice. If you want to attend that meeting and see the details, it should be at the second floor meeting room at Town Hall. and I'll update the comments if there's a change to the meeting location or time. So it should be 7 p.m. at the second floor meeting room at Town Hall. For additional information, and also, as I said earlier, on the town's website, you can see this on the video on demand. If you go to oxfordma.us, government, cable access, and then there's a video on demand site, and the finance committee's meetings are the government section. So that's everything for Article 5. So I'm going to move on to Article 6. So Article 6 says, to see if the town will vote to amend the Oxford zoning bylaw, Chapter 3, Use Regulations, Section 3, Accessory Uses, by adding a new section, Section 3.10, as follows. 3.10, Accessory Structures. Accessory structures 200 feet of area or less with a maximum eve height of 10 feet used for storage or utility purposes accessory to a primary residential structure are permitted by right in any district. The accessory structure shall comply with the front setback for its residential district, shall have a minimum side setback and a rear setback of no less than 5 feet, and shall be 10 feet from any other structure. Accessory structures that accommodate animals are excluded. So I'd like to start by saying, so this article, any change to zoning is required under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, to have a public hearing prior to being voted on at town meeting. The public hearing for this article is going to be at the planning board on Monday. It's 7:15 is when the public hearing starts. The meeting starts at 7 at the second floor meeting room at Town Hall, 325 Main Street. So anybody who's interested in offering any input about this article to the planning board is encouraged to do so. And if you have any questions, I believe the Board of Selectmen, it was commented that the building commissioner should be, hopefully at that meeting, answer residents' questions if they have questions about the applicability of this zoning bylaw change. Just reviewing, making sure I'm not missing anything else on that article. I don't believe so. So I'm going to move on to Article 7, which is the final article for this town meeting. Article 7. To see if the town will vote to amend the Oxford General Bylaws, Chapter 79, Registration and Maintenance of Vacant and Foreclosing Properties by adding the following. Now this is very long, so I'll try to kind of read through this. It's not so long that I can't read through it here, but I'll read through kind of the provisions of these different sections. And for residents who are interested in comparing the existing bylaw and then how this new bylaw is going to be added, you can see this on the general bylaws on the town's website. The easiest way to get to it is when you go to oxfordma.us. On the top right, there's a search field. In that search field, if you type general bylaws, that's B-Y-L-A-W, and hit enter or hit the little search flag, it will then provide a link to a PDF of kind of the whole text. The general bylaws are extremely long. They're well over 100 pages. But there is a table of contents, and you'll see Chapter 79, Registration, Maintenance of Vacant and Foreclosing Properties, and this is being added to that section. So we'll start with the purpose. The purpose and intent of this chapter is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Oxford by preventing blight, protecting the town's resources, avoiding the creation and maintenance of nuisances, and ensuring the safety and sanitary maintenance of all buildings and structures. Inadequately maintained residential or commercial business buildings are at an increased risk of fire, unlawful entry, and other public health safety hazards. This chapter will help ensure the welfare of the town's residents and neighborhoods and further the objectives of and to act in concert with existing state or local laws. Definitions. The following words and phrases are used in the bylaw shall have the following meanings unless contrary intention clearly appears. Blighted premises or blighted properties or the conditions of blight involving real property in the town of Oxford shall mean any building, structure, parcel of land, or any structure, a building or occupied structure that is a separate unit, whether commercial or residential, whether occupied or unoccupied, with at least one of the following conditions exist. the property is not being adequately maintained and secured as documented by the enforcement officer based upon but not limited to the following factors or similar factors: missing broken or boarded windows or doors for more than 30 days, collapsing or missing roofs, walls, or floors, siding that is seriously damaged or missing, extensive fire or water damage, a foundation that is structurally faulty, the exterior storage or accumulation of junk, trash, litter, bottles, cans, rubbish, or refuse of any kind except for domestic refuse stored in a manner as not to create a nuisance for a period of not more than 15 days. The term junk shall mean parts of machinery, motor vehicles, boats, motorcycles, or other inoperable machinery, used stoves, refrigerators, or other cast-off material of any kind, whether or not the same could be put to any reasonable use unless such items are customarily used in connection with a lawfully operated business. Gravel, rocks, dirt piles stored by the owner for purposes of construction or landscaping, and said items are not stored for more than 12 months upon the owner's premises unless such items are customarily used in connection with a lawfully operating business. Overgrown vegetation that may harbor vermin or pests, conceal pools of stagnant water or other nuisances, or which is otherwise detrimental to neighboring properties and which is not grown or permitted to serve conservation purposes. Dead, decayed, diseased, or hazardous trees, shrubs, or vegetation that may pose a hazard to the health and safety of any person in the vicinity of a property for which is detrimental to neighboring properties and which has not been removed to serve conservation purposes. Overgrown grass of at least 2 feet, not grown to serve conservation purposes. All dumpsters in place for more than 8 weeks shall be screened from public view and shall always be covered. Dumpsters used solely to serve construction carried out under a building permit are exempt. Other structural deficiencies that contribute to blight as determined by the enforcement officer or his agents. And that is Section A. Section B. Property allowed to exist in a condition of neglect resulting in the harboring of vermin or pests, the maintenance of a fire hazard as determined by the fire chief or his designee, or the attraction of illegal activity as determined by the police department, where such condition presents a risk to public health or safety. Property shall mean any real residential, commercial, industrial property or portion thereof located in the town of Oxford, including buildings, structures, and personal property located thereon. For purposes of this chapter, property does not include property owned by or subject to the control of any government entity, including the town of Oxford or any of its governmental bodies. Blighted conditions. No owner of property shall allow, create, maintain, or cause to be created or maintain any blighted premises. Administration. The investigation. The enforcement official shall undertake an investigation of any alleged violation of this chapter upon their own initiative or upon receipt of a complaint from any individual, civic organization, neighborhood group, governmental entity, or other affected agency. In conducting investigation, the enforcement official shall coordinate inspections by and among the Board of Health, the police chief, the fire chief, or their designee as the enforcement official deems appropriate to ensure that this bylaw be enforced. In making such inspection, the enforcement official shall have the right of access to the premises that may be lawfully exercised by him under the laws and Constitution of the Commonwealth of the United States. Order to take corrective action. In the event that a violation of this chapter has occurred, the enforcement official shall serve notice of the violation and an order to correct such violation on the owner of the property by certified mail or by handing a copy of the notice.
You do it through Zoom.
In order to
vehicles,
any
different.
specific, the order shall require
So just do whatever you
one
got.
or more of the following
I'll make sure I can
bring the
hear.
property into
All right.
compliance.
Are you headphones?
One,
No.
to take any action the enforcement official deems necessary to correct the violations. chapter to assist the town in protecting the public health, safety, and well-being. 2, to correct the violation within 7 days or within such time as the enforcement official deems reasonable and necessary. In the event of demonstrated hardship, an extension or extensions may be granted at the discretion of the enforcement official. 3, in instances where permits or other authorizations are required, to file a complete application and any required plans for said permit or repair rehabilitation, along with a schedule indicating a completion date for such work for various purposes. Such schedule may be approved by the enforcement official, or shall be approved by such an enforcement official. If the enforcement official determines that the condition is subject to the jurisdiction of the Board of Health, or is a violation of the state sanitary code, in addition to enforcing this chapter, he shall refer the matter to the Board of Health or any appropriate state or local officials for action. Failure to comply. Should the property owner fail to comply or neglect or refuse to take the corrective action specified in the notice, the enforcement official may seek an injunction or order in any court of competent jurisdiction restraining further use of the property and the continuation of the violation, and may take such action as is provided by law to enforce the provisions of this chapter. As the court may provide, or as otherwise provided by law, the town may undertake such repairs or actions, or may seek a court-appointed receiver to manage the property and bring said property into compliance with this bylaw and all applicable statutes, regulations, and codes, and to take such other corrective action as may be required to protect the health, safety, or welfare of the public. Notice of the intention of the town to make such repairs or corrective action shall be served on the owner by certified mail or by service in hand by a person duly appointed to do such. Recovery of costs. When repairs are made or corrective action is taken by the town, the cost of such repairs or enforcement action, plus any and all court costs and attorney's fees for administration, processing or prosecution or collection of these costs shall constitute a debt in favor of the town against the owner of the blighted premises. In the event the property owner fails, neglects, or refuses to pay the debt within 30 days of the debt receipt, the town may collect the debt by any lawful means, including initiating a civil action in court for the balance due and obtaining a lien on the property for the debt. Lenders foreclosing on a property may seek waiver of such costs that accrue before possession by lender, which the town may consider in its sole discretion. The enforcement authority under this section shall be in addition to and not in place of any other existing authority under relevant ordinance or general law, including General Law Chapter 139, Section 1, General Law Chapter 111, Sections 122 to 125, and General Law Chapter 143, Section 6. Penalties. Each separate offense of this chapter shall be punishable by a fine of $300. Each violation of any provision of this chapter shall be considered as a separate offense, and each day that violation continues shall constitute a separate offense. The imposition of any fine for this section shall not be construed to prevent enforcement of any other bylaws, laws, or regulations of the same property, nor prevent other enforcement measures or fines, including civil or legal action against the owner to require compliance with the order. Failure to pay any fine arising from the enforcement of this chapter shall constitute a debt in favor of the town. In addition to any other means of enforcement available under this law, the enforcement official may pursue this bylaw by means of non-criminal disposition pursuant to General Law Chapter 40, Section 21B. Appeals. Right to a hearing. Any person or persons upon whom any order to take corrective action has been served pursuant to this chapter and who is aggrieved by that order may seek an administrative appeal to the hearing officer. Such petition must be filed in writing within 7 days after the order was served. Hearing notice. Upon receipt of a petition, the hearing officer shall in writing inform the petitioner and other affected parties. Affected parties shall include occupants of affected premises if the petitioner is the owner, and and if the petitioner is an owner, and the owner if the petitioner is an occupant. And the date, time, and place of the hearing, and have their right to inspect and copy the enforcement official's file and other public records concerning the matter to be heard. Any person aggrieved of a final decision by this chapter by the hearing officer, or under this chapter by the hearing officer, may seek relief therefrom in any court of competent jurisdiction as provided by the laws of the Commonwealth. Applicability. If any provisions of this chapter impose greater restriction or obligations than those imposed by any general law, special law, regulation, chapter, order, or policy, then the provisions of this chapter shall control. Severability. If any section of this chapter is held to be invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, then such provision shall be considered separately and apart from the remaining chapters, which shall remain in force in full effect. The provisions of this chapter are effective immediately upon passage, and all provisions shall be enforced immediately. So I'll give kind of that was kind of long, so forgive me if I lost anybody, and I will kind of provide some kind of general explanation, kind of distill it down for people so that that they kind of fell asleep during all of that. Basically, it provides a list of different things that the town deems would be blight if those conditions are at any property in the town. It's bold-faced, all buildings and structures, and in another section, all properties. It also is kind of open-ended in the sense that after that list, it provides for basically any deficiency as determined by the enforcement officer, which, as my understanding in this case, would be the building commissioner or his appointee. Any condition that the fire chief believes is a fire hazard, or any condition that the police department believes attracts illegal activity. So it's somewhat open-ended in that way. As far as corrective action and enforcement, it's a $300 per day fine that the town can collect. That would be a debt to the town. So if you own property in the town would have legal right to then put a lien on your property to collect their court costs, their fees, and the $300 per day fine for each day that the condition that the town deems of blight persists. And then as far as appeals, you would appeal to a hearing officer. We already implemented the hearing officer under the health code back at the spring town meeting. If you watch the Board of Health, there's been a couple proceedings regarding that already in terms of determining whether property is habitable. So if the town deems property is not habitable, they take action through the Board of Health, and the parties who reside in the structure as well as the property owner have the right to appeal to a hearing officer in the town. If they disagree with the decision of the hearing officer, then they have a right to appeal that to court. I believe that covers all of Section 7. So I'm looking, I don't see any comments online from anybody. If anybody online would like to use the comment function to ask any further questions. It was ambiguous. So the planning board is going to be reviewing whether or not they want to recommend the zoning bylaw change. I would expect that they'll probably weigh in on this as well. It's not stated that they're taking public comment on this general bylaw change, but they may want to weigh in. So there may be some discussion of this beneath the planning board, and I would hope that they would provide some additional information because there is kind of a lot there. Again, you can see the existing general bylaw section on the town's website, as I discussed earlier. I'll provide all the links in the comments at the conclusion of this, just for anybody kind of searching for anything. So, does anybody else? If anybody has any public comment, you can approach the microphone, or if you don't want to be seen on camera, you're welcome to kind of call out your question, and I'll repeat it for anybody online. So before we do questions, does anybody want to give any comments? Okay, it doesn't appear anybody does. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask? All right. Give me just a second to switch you over. All right.
Rich Vaca, 24 Burlington Street, Oxford. On Article 5, I had heard that that's on the 2.5 override. I had heard the original estimate on the roofs was $7 million. Now it seems that we've added foundations and roofs in the bill, and the figure is going to $10 million. You know what I'm saying? Is that correct? Way I understand now?
Yes. So it's actually it's the foundations, it's the siding at Chafee and Clara Barton School. There's basically old stucco siding. I characterize it as stucco. I don't know what it actually is, but it looks kind of like stucco with these panels, and they're kind of cracking and starting to come away from the building. The water is infiltrating behind them and doing damage. And so what if you've been following the capital plan through the finance committee, these issues have been brought up over the last several years, and we haven't had appropriate money to address them. And so they're kind of putting all the major school issues in kind of one ask, if you will.
Yeah.
So it includes the foundations that have been brought up, the cracking foundations at elementary and Chafee schools. It includes that siding was degraded and damaged, and it's also including those roofs, and then also, as I understand it, half of the roof at the high school as well.
Okay.
So it's that's why the number's bigger and what we previously asked, and we haven't had the presentation to the finance committee. I suspect, my own personal opinion is that they will probably say in the finance committee that they're maybe going a little high because they don't want to surprise. Because once you ask, you've asked. It's very complicated to come back again. And again, they believe what they presented to the school committee was that you'd be able to hopefully get MSBA grant funding for 70 to 80%. So while the ask would be, as I understand it, for 10, hopefully what we actually pay, we actually want to borrow it for, will only be. But hopefully there'll be more information on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. in the finance committee, where they'll have of all that results.
Because I remember they said there were two different versions of the roofs. They had a cheaper version that was going to come in at less money. I don't remember exactly what that figure was. And the $7 million price tag was the roofs with all the bells and whistles, but they weren't talking about foundations. You know what I'm saying? So we must be going for all the bells and whistles, roofs, and the foundations.
Yes.
Okay.
This is, and so whenever the town seeks to have a debt exclusion, under the law, the debt exclusion is only for the specific thing you asked for. And so they looked at all these needs and they said, we're going to, they're looking at all these needs, deciding if you're going to go to do a debt exclusion, just get it all in there, take care of it all, because these are all issues where if you don't address them, they get worse. So the foundations, they're going to continue to crack, it's going to continue to get worse, and eventually it would get to a point where the building would be usable. And the town we do have a history in the town of buildings that investments were made in them, and then get to a certain point, and it's just not really feasible anymore. So this article, it's to pay for those foundation repairs that we've known about for years and talked about for years, to pay for the siding repairs that the town has kind of brought up to the finance committee several times, and to address the roofs, which have been leaking for, at this point, a few years. That's been leaks. So.
Now, I know this isn't on the town warrant, but it's just an additional question. But now, will this $10 million fee totally take care of all the problems of these three schools? Or is there additional things that need to be done to square these schools up?
There may be, so if you, anybody who wants to catch the most recent school committee meeting, one of the school committee members had raised an issue of like floor tiles in the middle school and maybe a concern of like a chemical issue there. There wasn't a lot of detail provided on that, but it is something in the background. These are the things that are kind of imminent, that kind of have to be addressed. Every day that we don't address them, kind of they get worse. So the longer you wait with the foundations, the more cracking and damage there's going to be. The longer you wait with the roofs, the more damage to the interior of the building there's going to be. The longer you wait with the siding, then they take away that siding, the water is when you can see that anybody who drives by and looks, you'll see, you can see it, and it's clear water is infiltrating behind that siding. So if you allow more infiltration of water, there'll be more damage. And so it's this, there will be asks for other things at the schools. Again, at the most recent school committee, the school has its own capital plan that's kind of separate from the town budget, where they're kind of paying things on their own. They're talking about that. But this debt exclusion is only for these things. These are the big ticket items that are costing a lot of money. And hopefully if there's any cost to be brought up, these are the things that have been brought up in previous years. The finance committee.
All right, thank you very much.
Does anybody else have a question?
It's okay.
Of course.
It's cold out here.
Yes, it is cold.
So I had a question on Article 5 too. It was when it mentions
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
so when it mentions Article 5, it mentions to borrow such amount pursuant to the Mass General laws for other enabling legislation. What's the other enabling legislation? Is that local legislation that they're talking about?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. Is that the federal, in Boston state legislature through representatives, or is this the legislature, the body of the taxpayers? Is that what that meant to?
So this is there's kind of boilerplate language. So to repeat the question for everybody, in case the mic didn't pick it up very well. The question was about the specific language in Article 5 for the debt exclusion. It says, authorize the treasurer with approval of the Board of Selectmen to borrow such amount pursuant to the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, or any other enabling legislation. And so the question was, well, what is meant by other enabling legislation? And so you'll see that with a lot of these articles, this is kind of boilerplate language they throw in to kind of just say, well, there's something else out there. We're considering all the laws. But the specific law in this case is Prop 2.5 that's cited here in General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21, Section C-K, and General Laws, Chapter 44. And so that's all that's meant. This is just a regular
Standard
2.5
language.
debt exclusion. That's kind of the standard language.
Okay. I think I'm answering that. And the other question I had on that was, like based on our current tax rates, when they do these debt exclusions, say like 10 million, can they tell us, can they calculate like how much it's gonna add to our current tax rate based like per thousand? Is that something they can do to us when they do these debt exclusions?
Yes, and so, I considered providing calculations ahead of time, but then I kind of looked at it and I thought, well, they said 10 million, but I want to wait to see what that was the official number. And if you've ever been to any of the town meetings before where a debt exclusion is proposed, it's very common that what they'll do is they'll provide a summary of your estimated property value, and then about how much you expect to pay at the end of the year. And then they may even say, well, how much did you come up additional to pay for that debt exclusion? And so, when you look at something like this at 10 million, well, the town had proposed, I believe it was 12 million for roads a few years ago, and that wound up being, I believe it was less than $10.
Per thousand?
Well, no, it was less than $10. I think. I don't want to provide anything that's wrong, so I'll do the calculations and then I'll probably provide comments. But they will provide it. It's not going to be at $10 million a huge amount of money.
I think the residents would like to know how it affects their tax rate.
It will be provided. Again, I thought about doing calculations ahead of time, but I was like, I don't really want to do that until I put out officially what the number's going to be. But it's very common. You're going to see probably at the finance committee, and I would say at 7, and then I would expect again at town meeting. They'll break it down. They'll say, hey, if your property's worth this amount, this is what it's going to be, extra, and then you can divide that by 12 if you want to say, oh, how much is per month. I mean, people pay their property taxes twice a year, or it comes out of your mortgage, and then, you know, it comes out of your escrow account, your mortgage, so your mortgage will go up to your property tax. So, like I said, I'll do some calculations, and I'll probably post some comments, and then I'll pick the town official numbers, but that's just my opinion. You'll be seeing presentations at the finance committee and town meeting.
All right, thank you for answering me. Then I had a couple questions on Article 7. How it says vacant, it's in the section of vacant and foreclosed properties, but then it goes on to say occupied or unoccupied. So that's, it feels like it's a complete contradiction to the body of the text. You know what I mean? Like the section is vacant properties, but then it talks about occupied properties. So I think maybe, I don't know, it seems awkward.
Okay. Yeah, so the question was about Article 7, which is amending the Oxford General Bylaws, Chapter 79, registration and maintenance of vacant and foreclosing properties. And the question was that the title of the section is regarding vacant and foreclosing properties, but what's being added says that it's all buildings and structures, and then later says language, something about all properties. And so the question was, well, so the title is vacant and foreclosing properties, but the language seems to say all properties. And what I would say is, so they're amending the existing chapter, and so that's the title of the existing chapter, but it's just the title. And so, but the language, it does say all property, all buildings and structures, and like I said, all properties. And so, you know, I would hope that the town will provide some clarification, but my personal opinion is, I mean, the words on the page are the words on the page. You know, and so, you know, I would expect, like again, hopefully on Monday at the planning board, there'll be some explanation and some clarity on that. And I would expect that, like I said, to me, the words on the page are the words on
I'm
the
asking
page.
you maybe questions I would probably be asking during the town meeting, but I figured I'd ask them now.
Yeah, and it's good to ask it now. You know, obviously this broadcast is going to be available. So we're broadcasting to Facebook right now, but you know, we're recording this as well, and I expect we will upload the recording to YouTube as well, so it'll be publicly available to those not on Facebook.
I got something more.
Sure.
The enforcement officer, is that a new position, or as would you say that it's a building commissioner appointee? Is that something we have to make for? A new position?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So many people may not be aware that the building commissioner, one of his other roles is the zoning enforcement officer. So it's another position, but it's the same person. Now this language of this article, it enables him to have somebody else. And so the reason why they would probably, this is my opinion, my personal opinion, the reason they would likely put that information in there is because, like, so for example, the town participates as a grant for state and regional health inspector organization. And so the town, you know, sometimes health inspections can be performed by the town's health inspector, who's paid for by the town, and sometimes health inspections can be provided for by that regional inspector, who's paid for by the regional grant. And so this gives the town the flexibility to continue to have the zoning enforcement officer, the building commissioner, do those inspections, or to, you know, this language also references, like, hey, something might be forwarded to the Board of Health. And so then the health agent, you know, could do that. Or it could be the town's regional health agent. And I think, my personal opinion is that's probably why they put that language in there, was to give them the flexibility to where if it's a health issue, have health do it. You know, if it's the regular zoning enforcement officer, that individual could do it.
Okay, so that leads into another question I had, which is the reference to the state sanitary code and the other health regulations. So, I mean, blighted properties, it doesn't seem like state sanitary code would come into, like, what's that about? I mean, it just feels like that sanitary code is kind of like an indoor, like if you're serving food, right? You got human waste or whatever. Blighted properties, we're talking about dirt piles. Like a dirt pile is a dirt pile really a blighted, you know what I mean? Like somebody has a pile of dirt in their yard, can that really be considered? Or an area that's not mowed because there's some wild grasses growing there. I think those areas are questionable whether or not they should be considered blight.
Yeah, so the question was about the enforcement for the Article 7, the maintenance and vacant foreclosed properties regarding
Sanitary code, references.
yes, yeah, how that would be applicable to the state sanitary code.
Thank you, Mr. King.
You're welcome. How that would be related to the state sanitary code, and an example of like piles of dirt, how does that relate to the state sanitary code? So what this bylaw is kind of doing here is it's kind of taking, there's a lot of different state codes for a lot of different things, and this is trying, my opinion is this is trying to seek to kind of stitch them together. And I will put out probably as well in the comments a link to this town of Southbridge's blight ordinance, so people can kind of compare and contrast, like how do they do it, what does this bylaw say, how are they the same, how they're different. So not everything in here would necessarily be a health issue. Some things are, some things aren't. And so that's why the sanitary code is referenced. And that's why, but that's also why the enforcement officer is referenced. And so it kind of pulls from a lot of different sections to kind of put into one bylaw.
I just have one more question.
Sure.
And that is, it says the town may take action to make repairs. So if the town takes action to make repairs, that's coming from the cost of the taxpayer. Now, the owner may or may not pay those fines back. They don't, it's up to the town to get that money back from the person that they're making repairs for. So, you know what I mean? It's like we're doing it on liability there. This is liability. We're just hoping that the town can recollect those money. But if the town makes repairs, we use our funds in advance.
Yes, so it sounds like for everybody listening, the question was regarding the provision in Article 7, the maintenance of vacant foreclosed properties, regarding where it says that the town or the owner would be responsible for any costs incurred by the town for repairs and then also for litigation. And so the question was, well, so wouldn't that be tax dollars? So obviously any money spent by the town is subject to appropriation to the town meeting, will be tax dollars, and this provides for the town the ability to collect on those fines and repairs under the existing general laws. So the town, lots of people sometimes owe the town money for taxes. You could owe the town money for fines, and the town has the ability to put a lien on your property. So if you're ever to sell your property, then the town would collect that money at the time of sale. The town can also seize properties for liens, like in tax title, for example. So it's there's a lot of specifics regarding that process, and I will try and do some more research and post some more links to the specific language for the statutes, so that people can. It's a little complicated when you get into legal stuff like that, but try and kind of explain it to people in a way that's easier to understand. But the intent of this, as in my opinion, kind of trying to interpret it, is they're not expecting the town to be paying for things. They're expecting to compel the property owners to pay for things, and if they don't, then there'll be fines up to $300 per day. So I hope that answers that question. So we had another question submitted online. It says Article 6, but it looks like it's meant to be Article 7 about the $300 per day fine. The town will cause many hardships for its residents. The town-wide HOA, if passed, our government overstepping its boundaries on top of bringing another salary for the examiner. So this bylaw doesn't necessarily require the town to hire a new person. It could be It could be another person, as I said before, or it could be the same person. That's kind of at the discretion of the town administration, how exactly they want to handle that. We do have an existing, individual who's the building commissioner, who also, functions as the zoning enforcement officer. In terms of the hardship, there was language about, hardship subject to the interpretation of the enforcement official, who in this case would be the building commissioners or zoning enforcement officer. So up to their discretion, there is a provision. I'm trying to find the language right now regarding hardship. As to whether or not the town is overstepping, obviously, that's like anything. It's up to the town meeting. It's up to the people who come to town meeting to decide, is this something they agree with? Do they think it's too broad? And it's subject to amendment. So if there's provisions people don't like, they can amend it, on the floor of town meeting if they wish. I hope I've answered that question. Are there any other questions? Sure.
So that's about Article 7. So Tim, we already told us as far as can you take us a look? I have a couple on it. But can you take us a look through the process on kind of the enforcement? So is it going to take another resident? Could it be a drive-by by the zoning officer? How does this start? And how does it get it to the point of the text? Because like you said, we're not voting on the title, we're voting on the context of what the actual article is. So with that, can you take us through the process? I know the timing on it, like a certain time, 30 days for this or whatever for that, but it's $300 a day. So by the time that time frame comes up, you're $9 grand in beyond that time, beyond the time frame, right? So if you were late 30 days beyond the required time, when does that 300 start? Every day you're not in compliance, or after, once you serve, so to speak? How does that?
The question was regarding the enforcement. There were kind of two parts to it. There was a question about kind of who's submitting complaints, and then similarly a question about the finding, when the finding starts, how that works. So again, this is my opinion. I'm not speaking for the town, but the board of selectmen. I'm just kind of reading the text that's on the page for you and kind of offering my opinion about what the text of the page says. So regarding who can submit complaints, it says there's a couple where it says an individual, an organization, a couple of things, but when it says any individual, don't think anybody, it's any individual. So it could be anybody. You can contact the town with a complaint. There's an existing, people can do that today. That's not necessarily novel to this, it's just kind of wraps everything together. So right now, anybody could submit a complaint on any property to the Board of Health, for example, about conditions that they're concerned about, and the Board of Health would have the ability to take action on it. Regarding the fine structure, so the language around the fine penalties is that my understanding reading this was that it would be from after the person received notice, and I'm looking for the specific language. So I see why you're asking the question, because under the penalty section, I don't believe it actually says specifically when they start. But my understanding is that they couldn't fine you until you received the notice of the violation. And but the fines would not be imposed. Give me just a moment to kind of read through here. the timeline is that, so let's say an individual reports something, then the enforcement official wants to take action on that. The enforcement official has to notify that individual by a certified mail or provide it to them in writing. And then the individual has 7 days, or such time as the enforcement official deems reasonable. So I guess,
10 minutes could be.
Well, it's subject to interpretation, but it says that what he deems reasonable, and then he can provide extensions for hardship to then respond, and the individual the property owner has to provide a plan to them. So I think the intent here is that if you didn't submit a plan or you were non-responsive, there would be fines up to $300 per day. Again, I mean, it's a good question. The language is not specific as to exactly precisely when that sequence would start. So I would probably I'll probably look into the general laws and see if there's more guidance about kind of when that actually starts. Like what is it's as of this date, these are when the fines start.
Okay.
So because so there are because this wraps in a couple different statutes, if you talk about something that's a health code matter versus something that's a building code matter, the different governing statutes may have different language. And so that's something I'll be reviewing, and I'll try and provide some information. I'm sure it'll be the subject of questions, of people at town meeting. So, thank you very much. It's a very good question.
You got another one.
Sure.
So you're saying you can basically apply, or so to speak, or contact them and discuss a hardship with them. So within the provisions of that article, if that passes, whatever the time frames are, so let's just say I blow out my back at work. So beyond the time frame, I don't mow my lawn, I can't afford to have somebody mow for me, I don't have any family, or whatever the case may be. So I would incur a $300 a day fine, enforceable fine, to the point where beyond a certain point of that time period, they could have an injunction against me and remove me from my own home. Is that kind of what we're vaguely what we're getting at?
So the language here is very broad, and the governing statutes, like I said, there's different governing statutes, and so to give you an example, if you follow the Board of Health, there's been in the last several months, there's been a few discussions of instances where a structure can be deemed no longer habitable, and that's a process, and you get a public hearing before that would happen. Before they could take action, you have the ability to appeal the decision to the hearing officer here. And let's say the hearing officer doesn't agree with you, you then have the ability to appeal in court. And so it's while whether or not you have a hardship, and whether or not the hardship is deemed reasonable by the enforcement officer, is subject to their discretion, because I read the statute. There is you can appeal it, and then to the hearing officer, and then there's a court. So in order for the town to take kind of legal action like that, they kind of they have to take action in code. And as this would say, in court or competent jurisdiction. So the housing court, what the issue is, or the superior court, they have to go to court to get enforcement on these orders. I think that answered your question.
No, it did. And just like a commenter had said on the page there, asked a question about basically saying it's basically an HOA. I mean, we're an oversized HOA if this passes when it comes to property. Like you said in the language is the language. So that's going to be used. Now it could be, I'm sure it'll be talked about. That there will be enforcement. It's not going to be this crazy thing where every day somebody's getting the door kicked in to look at everything and do this and that, and the complaints won't be ridiculous, but the ability to enforce it on those complaints is in this bylaw. So regardless of the intent of what people are going to say it's for, I just want to make it clear that the text is the text, that's what's being broken. Am I correct?
Yes, yeah, I mean, so whenever the town passes a bylaw, if there's a dispute about the text that you've ever seen at the ZBA, I've never seen the ZBA say, well, we're going to go back and watch the town meeting video and figure out what the intent of town meeting is. They're going to interpret it. When you look at the health code, the health agent is going to interpret that. And then if the bylaw was to go to be appealed and then into the court's going to interpret that. And so, the specific language here is kind of what the town meeting is voting on. The specific language is kind of what is going to persist and be adjudicated. So, I'll express my own personal opinions as to the merits of these things in other venues, but here I'm just trying to provide just read the text for people and kind of hear what people's questions are. You seem to ask another question.
I asked another question, because he just brought up something that was really important, and that was, it also says that the person is responsible for technical, administrative, and professional fees accompanying repairs, plus any other court costs and attorney fees for administration, processing, or prosecuting the collection of the costs. And there's another debt to the town. So these are additional fees on top of the $300 a day. And then it also says you have to pay your debt within 30 days of the debt receipt, or you're gonna have to go to pay attorney fees for courts, and it's a lot of hidden costs. It could be something, I just feel like it could be abusive. It could be abusive if somebody's owned they can't figure their home or something. That's all.
All right. It's not really, so for the public, it's not really more a question, more just kind of a statement from a resident about the merits of this. The resident just was expressing concern that the paying for the court costs and the administrative costs and the repair costs, in addition to the fine, burdensome. And that's what town meeting is for. If residents agree or disagree with the provisions.
Sorry.
Oh, did we lose
Your
the
live
feed?
feed though.
Oh, it died?
The live feed is, yeah.
So you're not broadcasting at all. Just on your other
Yeah, it says I'm live here.
It says waiting for a video signal to your phone.
Yeah, I don't know. It says I have no communication, but then it also says I'm live. Yeah, and I have a connection. All right, I'll take a second to try and troubleshoot the.
Yeah, 'cause it's not up on Facebook.
Yeah, thanks.
He cut me off.
Just to show you.
Oh, I saw.
Waiting for video signal.
It cut me off when I started talking about it didn't feed.
Oh, did it?
Oh, that was when it died.
You're still recording. You just might have to edit if you talk too much.
Yeah. We'll see if it's my connection or if it's just Facebook or what the deal is.
Sorry, I came back up to ask about that.
Oh, that's okay.
I agree with Timothy though. It's basically the town can take your property. Because you have high grass. I also understand the intent.
Robert, I'm gonna have to take off.
Oh yeah, no worries. Do you want me to gather your stuff up? I can bring it over to your house later or
We
something.
can either bring it or just hang on to it.
All right.
Like, or whatever, until the next time.
Yeah, sure.
I used to smoke. I remember those days.
Good to see you.
God, not bad. Explanation is this.
Yeah, I hope. Could you hear me all right?
Huh?
Could you hear me all right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be. We'll post the recording too. So if you need to listen to it louder, you can listen to the recording louder too.
Okay. Thank you.
You too.
What's gonna happen? You gonna sign off with the?
I may end it because I'm just having internet connection problems, so I don't really know what to do about that.
All right, I'm gonna take off.
All right.
Rich can hold on to my coat for a while. He's got my coat. He's gonna need it. It's cold out today.
Yeah.
It seems like it dropped like 10 degrees after we got it. Thanks for answering all my
Oh,
questions.
you're welcome.
I noticed a couple things after being here,
Yeah.
like that, those fees and stuff,
Yeah.
you know, and the dirt pile.
Yeah.
I can see if it's a contaminated dirt pile, but if it's just a pile of regular dirt.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, Robert. Thanks
You
a
too.
lot.